I am Shenzhen Liao, Director of Education Programs at China Institute. Thank you for joining in today's workshop for educators on culturally responsive teaching, what teachers need to know, a joint program brought together through a long-standing partnership among the New York State Urban, standing for Statewide Language Regional Bilingual Education Resource Network at NYU, and I'm honored Mr. Ran Wu, Executive Director of Urban, is joining us today. Mr. Wu, can you say a few words? Can you unmute yourself if you are muted?
Yes, good morning, everyone. I'm very pleased to be here with Shenzhen, the Confucius Institute at China Institute. As she said, we've had a long-standing collaboration from before when we were up at East 65th Street till now. I mean, it's been multiple decades. And I'm actually very happy to be part of this collaboration with the with the Developing Chinese Language Teachers program at NYU as well. Today's workshop around culturally responsive education is really one of the many initiatives that New York State has been putting forth around how to help schools increase their school climate. As you probably noted, the culturally responsive teaching was initiated 2 years ago. Prior to that, there was social emotional learning that was initiated. This year, two weeks ago, actually 2.5 weeks ago, the New York State Board of Regents initiated a new policy called Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. This is all part of the effort to increase a better school climate. Culturally responsive education is one of them. So I'm pleased to have Nancy Wang on my team who is going to be presenting today. And thank you, Shenzhen, and thank you, Frank and Robin, for this continuing collaboration.
Thank you, Ron, and always, well, thank you for your support. And as Ron mentioned, we are also our partner project DCLT, Developing Chinese Language Teachers at NYU. And I'm also so appreciate this partnership with Project DCLT. And Robin, Professor Robin Harvey, could you please say a few words?
Sure, thank you, Shenzhen, and thank you for this long partnership. We don't have quite as long a partnership, NYU DCLT, with China Institute and the Arbern as the Arbern, but we have been working together, we're so pleased, since 2008, when we had our first events for Chinese language teachers. So DCLT is NYU's project for developing Chinese language teachers. And we're very, very pleased to have presented these workshops with the Arbern and China Institute this year on culturally responsive pedagogy and social emotional learning in this time of challenge and sometimes trauma for our students. It's really important to address their needs. And I think this is a fitting way to cap off this year with our last event before the summer. I ran over and turned on my fan a moment ago so I would be windblown during this event. But also just wanted to welcome everybody. And Frank, did you want to just say hello quickly? Professor Tang is co-director of our project DCLT.
Hello, everyone. I'm Frank Tang. I'm working with Robin. We have been working for many, many years. And so we also have been working with Ron since we were at Board of Education, longtime friend, and Shenzhen at China Institute. So we look forward to this wonderful workshop starting with Nancy and look forward to more collaboration. Enjoy, everyone.
Thank you, Professor Harvey and Professor Tang. Truly, this is a wonderful partnership and teamwork together to bring every single workshop. And I have my colleague from the Confucius Institute at China Institute, Yongqiang, here. You have been receiving Yongqiang?
Yeah,
where are
I'm
you?
here.
You've been receiving emails and reminders, and also follow-up communications will be also coming from Yongqiang, and he's the technology master behind the scene as well. So now it's my honor to introduce our speaker today, Miss Nancy King Wang. Many participants, and also as everybody has mentioned, who have been to our workshops may be very familiar with Mr. Wang, Miss Wang, since before the pandemic, and especially through recent series of workshops on social emotional learning, and with over 30 years teaching experience as an ESL teacher, a Chinese language teacher, a bilingual guidance counselor, as well as 16 years assistant principal experience. Ms. Wang's expertise truly ranges from classroom teaching, administration, counseling, and leadership. So on this very important topic of culturally responsive teaching today, I look forward very much to the presentation and discussions led by Ms. Wang. So without further ado, I will turn the screen to Nancy, please. Nancy, you have to unmute yourself. Nancy, can you hear me? You have to unmute yourself. Yongqiang, perhaps if you can find Nancy and remind her to unmute herself.
Yeah, I sent her message.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Sorry for that. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Shenzhen, Frank, Robin, and Ron and Yongqiang for your help and support. And this is the fourth workshop that I'm doing for doing and in collaboration with China Institute and the NYU DCLT program. And I'm very happy and to work with a very strong team and supportive team to help our teachers and to implement social emotional learning and cultural responsive sustaining education framework in our city, in our state. So now I'm going to start, not to say too much. And welcome to our workshop about cultural responsive teaching. And everybody knows my name is Nancy King Wang. I'm a resource specialist at Regional Bilingual Education Resource Network at NYU. And I'm just spelling out what Arbor means. And now let's start our workshop. All right, given the current societal and global issues that we are confronting, it is crucial for us to implement the cultural responsive sustaining education in our classrooms. In today's workshop, participants will be able to gain knowledge of the NYS, New York State Culturally Responsive Sustaining Education Framework, and review the 4 principles of the New York State Culturally Responsive Sustaining Education Framework, and understand the importance of culturally responsive teaching for students who are culturally and linguistically diverse. Let's first answer some true and false questions. Please read the statements on the screen and then decide which statement is true and which statement is false. After 2 minutes, please use the poll to answer these questions. We'll invite Yongqiang to put on the polls. You can read it first, of course. Then we will invite Yung Chang to put up the polls. That's why it is on the screen, and people can think about it and make your choice.
So if you don't see the poll, you can click on polling and it will pop up.
So is Yung Chang, okay,
Yep.
I think he's waiting for 2 minutes.
Yeah, I'm waiting for your signal to
Okay, that's
launch
fine.
the poll.
Put up, yeah, thank you. Put up the poll.
Okay, I'm launching it now. Can everyone see the polling questions?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, we see
thank
them.
you.
Can see it? Right, good.
Yeah, we see them.
It's changing, right? The poll is the bars are changing back and forth. People are still thinking which one is the true answer and which one is the false answer.
Don't forget to submit.
Yes, please submit your polling. So that's about it, I think. And we can end the polling.
Okay. Okay, I'm share the result now.
Good. All right, so this is the result. So the first one is true, and okay, we'll see the results from my screen also, okay? Okay, the first one is true. There are 67% of people true, and that is correct. And the second question, culturally responsive education is not about teaching the student in front of you. And some people said true and some people said false. And it is false because we are teaching in front of us, okay? And I'm going to explain it a little bit more. And culturally responsive education must be sustaining. Yeah, true. Everybody's saying true. Okay. And we have to go down. Okay. And differences should not just be seen as strengths, but they should also be maintained because they're sustaining, right? Because they are what makes students and families unique. Good. All right. And we already explained it. So I'm going to just say it a few words. Using this approach to education, all families are believed to have cultural capital or knowledge or abilities and networks that can ensure communities. Cultural responsiveness begins with you and where you are in your heart and mind to better serve all your students in a way that affirms who they are culturally and linguistically. Culturally responsive education must also be sustaining, that it is must work to encourage culturally pluralism and not cultural assimilation. Cultural and people might ask, what is cultural pluralism? In a pluralistic culture, groups not only coexist side by side, but also consider qualities of other groups as triads worth having in the dominant culture. Pluralism societies place strong expectations of integration on members rather than expectations of assimilation. So this is a very important concept, that we encourage pluralism, not assimilation. Years ago, we were told that we should assimilate ourselves to American culture and only speak English at the expense of denying our home language and culture. Culturally responsive teaching recognizes the importance of including students' cultural references in all aspects of learning. However, culturally responsive education must also be sustaining. That is, it must work to encourage cultural pluralism, not cultural assimilation. That I'm repeating, but I'm just stressing on this. Home and youth culture should be welcomed into the classroom as areas ripe for discussion. Differences should not just be seen as strengths, but they should be maintained. That's why we are saying sustaining, because they are what makes students and families unique. How educators understand culture has real consequences for our children. And it has consequences for our children. It has a limited understanding of culture, has a power to disadvantage some while privileging others. So now we're going to continue. What is culturally responsive sustaining education? Culturally responsive sustaining education this approach to education counters or comparing to the dominant narratives about difference as deficits or as characteristics of students and families that should be remediated or assimilated. However, if you use culturally responsive approach to education, all students and families are perceived as having cultural richness or knowledge, abilities, and networks that can and should be supported in the classroom. As we mentioned before, that students' home culture should be welcomed into the classroom as areas ripe for discussion. So they should be seen as strengths, and family and students, they have their unique strengths and backgrounds. So what are the benefits of implementing cultural responsive education? What are the benefits? Culturally responsive education, what are the benefits of implementing culturally responsive education? Please enter the answers in the chat box. So we start to, Xinzhan, you can help us to read out the chat box answers, and you can also speak it out loud.
Yeah, so as I have put in the chat box, the message welcome to post your response to this question on the PowerPoint to the chat room. I can read your feedback, or if you want to just respond yourself, you can unmute yourself. So we have from Marva, this will help people to respect each other.
Great. Thank you, Marva.
And empathy, Yin Zhang mentioned, and it honors the learner from Virginia. And Rachel says, I think it can help raise students' awareness of barriers. Forges closer relationships between student and teacher, and contributes to self-esteem. Sorry, I will just skip the names because, well, just to keep up
The
with
people,
the.
I think people
yeah.
can see the names also, right? Great.
Yes.
Okay, great. They're all very good answers, and also it's based on the previous 3 sessions. I think people have some sense of social emotional learning, and it's closely related to this, right? That people have said about empathy, respect everybody, and also here I see give students self-worth. That's fantastic. So I'm going to start to say something to explain the benefits. Students will experience academic success. They're prepared for rigor and independent learning. Students understand themselves as contributing members of an academically rigorous, intellectually challenging school and classroom community. Students demonstrate an ability to use critical reasoning, take academic risks, and leverage a growth mindset to learn from mistakes. Students are self-motivated. Self-motivated is so important. Students' self-worth, right? As what one of our participants said. They are self-motivated, setting and revising academic personal goals to drive their own learning and growth. And students will be socio-politically conscious and social-culturally responsive. Students acknowledge the limitations of their own perspectives. They have empathy. See, empathy comes up again for others while they appreciate and respect. See, Martha just mentioned about respect. Yes, and respect other differences, others' differences. They demonstrate cooperation and teamwork, using active learning and communication skills to resolve conflict. They use interpersonal skills to build and maintain strong relationships, including those along lines of difference in their class and school communities, all layers of the environment in which students learn, affirm, and value the various aspects of students' cultural identities, such as race, ethnicity, age, gender, sexual orientation, disability, religion, socioeconomic background, and so on and so forth. Role models in the classroom, school, family, and community recognize students' strengths and offer opportunities for students to grow and learn. Okay, students will have a critical lens through which they challenge inequitable systems of power and privilege. Students bring a critical lens to the world as they study historical and contemporary conditions of inequity and learn from historically marginalized voices. Students learn about power and privilege in the context of various communities and are empowered as agents of positive social change. So this is a brief introduction of the benefits of implementing culturally responsive education. Now we're going to ask, what is the New York State culturally responsive sustaining framework? We can say it is a guideline for students, teachers, schools and district leaders, families, and community advocates, higher education in New York State Education Department. We need to be aware the framework aligns closely with other New York State Education Department policies, including the Board of Regents and the New York State Education Department Every Student Succeeds Act, as what Mr. Wu talked about, it is closely related. What we are going to, how we're going to implement this is how we are also going to implement our ASA plan. Okay, and ASA and the social emotional sustaining framework recognizes the effect of school environment on students' academic performance and support efforts to improve the climate of all schools. Not only attendance, not only like the discipline issues, but students should learn the importance of recognizing diversity, inclusion, and all these, it's very important to, and equity, as I just mentioned, and promotes a relationship of trust and respect between schools and families. Recognize that student achievement and school improvement are shared responsibilities. Provide educators with opportunities for cultural professional learning in the area of equity, anti-bias, multicultural, and culturally responsive sustaining pedagogies. Supports districts and their communities in engaging in critical conversations about culturally responsive sustaining education system. All my, this workshop is based on the document issued by, published by the New York State Educational Department of Culturally Responsive Sustaining Framework. And it's very important. By the end, we will give all the attendees, like participants, the link to that document. And maybe some of you already read it, okay? So we are going to continue now. Any questions you can ask? Any questions now? You can put it in the mail, checkbox. Okay. Now, we're talking about the goal of CRS framework. The goal of CRS framework, CRSE framework, is to help educators design and implement a student-centered learning environment that affirms racial, linguistic, and cultural identities. I might be repeating something, but it's important. So sometimes if you hear it quite a few times, then it goes into your mind, right? It goes into your heart, right? Okay. It affirms racial and cultural identities and fosters positive academic outcomes. For example, when teachers begin to learn about their students' cultures, they begin to understand them more. For example, teachers may have students make presentations about their own cultures. They may also use poetry, vivid pictures, and videos, and talk about their grandparents, the immigration history, their parents, what did their parents go through in their native country and after they came to the United States. Those are very interesting stories, and I think many teachers are doing this in the classroom. Even in some subject area classes, not language classes, students can talk about it. Oh, I know this from working the fields with my parents about how to grow the crops. You know, a lot of things can relate to the student's background. Second, develop students' ability to connect across cultures. When teachers use culturally responsive classroom instructional practices and strategies, culturally and linguistically diverse students find relevant connections between their culture and across other cultures, as well as in the subject matter being taught. For example, if students conduct research and presentations to learn about the significance of their own and other cultures, not only their own, but other cultures. We are not only like even maybe most of you are Chinese language teachers here, but I see many other teachers coming. Not only your own culture, your own language, but other students in other classes, and even in the Chinese language class, there's some other students from other cultures learning Chinese, right? To learn your own culture and other cultures. And see what all these cultures have in common and their differences. This is segment that I just talked about, connect across culture. Now, I'm going to talk about empower students as agents of social change. This is a big topic. When teachers select readings on people who took a stand in injustice and created change, linguistically diverse students are empowered to relate their readings to events happening now and happening in our society. They become better equipped to cultivate their own ways to bring about change. For example, there are a lot of excellent and outstanding, promising youngsters. And of course, a lot of people are so, so outstanding and excellent in our society, in all different areas of life of walks. And example, a Chinese American young man, Zach Zen, who was a student of mine in high school 30 years ago, risked his life and passed away by saving people in the horrific 9/11 terrorist attack. He's an American hero. One of the streets in Chinatown is named after him. So we see a lot of people, they're dedicating, they're concerned about their community. They show their concern for people around them. He showed his love for his community by helping others and sacrificed his life. Students can also read about Edna Chavez, a 19-year-old Latinx activist who witnessed routine gun violence in her community and a shooting outside her home that took the life of her 14-year-old brother. She's now an active member of the community coalition of young empowerment, fighting for immigration rights and anti-violence issues, which is very important. So these young people are showing the community, showing the society, they want to bring change for the society. And when we talk about social change, to play an important role in social change, we teach our youngsters to be civic ready, to be an advocate for social justice. And I remembered Chancellor Patty Rosa talked about civic readiness. Our students need to learn this while we're talking about culturally responsive, sustaining education. And another goal contributes to an individual engagement, learning, growth, and achievement through the cultivation of critical thinking. For examples, when teachers provide opportunities for linguistically diverse students to engage in activities and having difficult conversations, such as talking about LGBTQIA, and maybe people know that, right? Lesbian, gay, bisexual, trans, queer, intersex, and asexual, they can think critically and discuss it. And students in, I remember in the high school I worked in, we have discussions. We invited speakers about this. How to show your respect with people who are different from you in terms of sexual orientation. And this is also, they can think critically to examine and address the equities they face. Now, I have to be a little bit faster, I think. The framework is intended to be used by a variety of 7 educational stakeholders, including but not limited to students, teachers, school and district leaders, families, as we mentioned before. In this workshop, we will focus on how teachers can implement the culturally responsive sustaining education framework. Today, we have a focus on teachers. But if we talk about all stakeholders, we can talk about it for a week or a month, or never ending. So, and even teachers, we only pull out some aspects of our 4 principles to talk about. Okay. So now, what are the 4 principles of the New York State Culturally Responsive Sustaining Education Framework? First, I mentioned the framework is the center of this workshop, because we're focusing on the 4 principles, this framework. 4 principles, I mean the 4 principles of the framework. The first one is welcoming and affirming environment. It is a space where people feel safe and can find themselves represented and reflected, and where they understand that all people are treated with respect and dignity. The environment ensures all cultural identities, such as race, ethnicity, age, gender, sexual orientation, disability, language, religion, socioeconomic background, are affirmed, valued, and used as vehicles for teaching and learning. Okay, so, okay. High expectation and rigorous instruction prepare the community for rigor and independent learning. The environment is academically rigorous and intellectually challenging, while also considering the different ways students learn. Students learn in different ways. Instruction includes opportunities to use critical reasoning, take academic risks, and leverage a growth mindset to learn from mistakes, messages, encourage positive self-image, and empower others to succeed. Inclusive curriculum and assessment elevate historically marginalized voices. It includes opportunities to learn about power and privilege in the context of various communities, and empowers learners to be agents of positive social change. We have to think about how are we going to, as teachers, to be role models, to become positive social, to be involved in positive social change. It provides the opportunity to learn about perspectives beyond one's own scope. It works toward dismantling systems of biases and inequities, as well as decentering dominant ideologies in education. Ongoing professional learning is rooted in the idea that teaching and learning is an adaptive process needing constant re-examination. It allows learners to develop and sharpen a critical consciousness toward instruction, curriculum, assessment, history, culture, and institutions. Learners must be self-directed and take on opportunities that directly impact learning outcomes. So we're going to talk about these later on, about like how teachers are going to implement but only part of it. We cannot cover everything, which involves all this framework, but we will talk about something, all right? And quite a few things that which we think is very important, okay? Now, questions to the video. What do you see as features of a welcoming and affirming school environment for culturally diverse students? We will play the video twice, and you can watch the video and see, oh, where can I see the features that show a welcoming and affirming school environment? We're talking about the principle 1 now, right? Principle 1 of the framework, welcoming and affirming school environment. And please put your comments in the chat, or you can speak it out loud, all right? But I'm gonna play the video first. You can watch it.
Integrated educational framework. Strong and positive school culture. A strong and positive school culture creates an atmosphere in which everyone feels like they belong. The culture of the school is characterized by a happy, caring community that values everyone's needs. Students with disabilities are educated in the same integrated educational settings as other students their age. Every adult in the school plays a meaningful and critical role in serving all students. Specialized educators teach alongside their general education peers. Club organizers ensure that all students have access to extracurricular activities. School and district committees include families and choose curriculum that reinforce the contributions of a variety of cultures. School staff, families, and students collaborate to realize the school's shared values and beliefs, bringing to life the phrase, "all means all." Strong and positive school culture is about all adults working together to serve all kids.
Okay, I'm going to play it again.
Integrated educational framework. Strong and positive school culture. A strong and positive school culture creates an atmosphere in which everyone feels like they belong. The culture of the school is characterized by a happy, caring community that values everyone's needs. Students with disabilities are educated in the same integrated educational settings as other students their age. Every adult in the school plays a meaningful and critical role in serving all students. Specialized educators teach alongside their general education peers. Club organizers ensure that all students have access to extracurricular activities. School and district committees include families and choose curriculum that reinforce the contributions of a variety of cultures. School staff, families, and students collaborate to realize the school's shared values and beliefs, bringing to life the phrase, "all means all." Strong and positive school culture is about all adults working together to serve all kids.
Okay. So what do you see as features of a welcoming and affirming school environment for culturally diverse students? Please put it in the chat box. And then Xinjiang, please read them out. You need me to play it again, but I think the price is fine, right? When we have to remember when we teach our L students, we play the video slower, at a slower pace, and also we ask a question before the video, and let them know what are expecting students to learn or to see.
So Nancy,
okay, go ahead.
We
Okay.
start to
Go ahead.
see comments from teachers or students or teachers working together to build a welcoming environment for all students. And that's one comment: total inclusion, everyone working together and playing together, and inclusion, positive role models. These are the keywords I can see coming from the chat room comments. So people and interaction, people of all cultures interacting in the school setting.
Yeah, I also see in the chat box, students of all abilities work together in the classroom. That's great, because I see that special education, the students with IEPs also included in the classroom environment, like being helped by teachers. They're like, being helped by teachers and in the environment. So it's a very
And someone also mentioned the inclusive classroom environment, also mentioning both the general ed teacher and the special ed teacher working together in the same room with all students.
That's good. A lot of co-teaching going on. As when we visit schools, we see a lot of co-teaching with ELL teachers, with special ed teachers, with content area teachers, and that happened a lot. And I believe a lot of teachers see this in their classrooms, in their schools. All right, good. Anyone else? Then we'll.
And someone also, I think this is related to everybody working together. Someone also mentioned you need unity in the school system. So it's really talking about, I think, a lot of the keywords we mentioned already, working together, interaction, and being inclusive. That means it's not just the role of one party, whether teachers or students or families, it's everybody working together as a unity.
Okay, so let's continue, because the first principle that I'm going to talk about is also regarding the welcoming and affirming environment. So we can continue to put some comments in the chat box and talk about it. Now, coming to principle 1, welcoming and affirming environment. Okay, so this is principle 1. I'm not only taking it out from the document, this is in our mind. First, we need a safe and positive, welcoming, affirming environment for students to learn, right? To study and learn, and for teachers to teach and students to learn. So what are you doing now? Now I'm asking you, not in the video anymore, right? What are you doing now to create a welcoming and affirming environment to support students' cultures and languages in your classes? Just put in the chat box, or you can speak it out. Any teachers, unmute yourself and you can say it. Oh, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. Please, go ahead.
I teach my students to respect each other and be mindful that we are all human beings, and make sure that they do not disrespect their peer and they listen to them totally. And if they do not understand something that their peer says, that they would ask their peers to repeat it. I paraphrase it in a different way that they could understand, and let them know that we are all equal and we are all should be treated respect and listen to each other so that we could help each other in the long run, because we are all one part of a whole community and we need to work together.
Thank you so much, Mara. Anyone else wants to say something? Like, what are you doing now? What are you doing now? I believe teachers are doing a lot, so you can tell us some of your experience.
Yeah, someone mentioned, Nadia mentioned in the chat box, teaching the students to value their culture and other people's cultures through the arts.
Great.
Yeah, I think this is one more related to sharing and discussing various cultures in the classroom. If a cultural difference question comes up, we discuss it and expand upon it through further research. I want to actually extend this a little bit. Someone previously asked if students don't know their own cultural heritage, what do you do? I think these are related when you go into cultural discussions about differences, and not everybody knows everything. So I think going deeper and encouraging students to do more research perhaps is one way to sort of connect to these dots.
Okay, great. Anyone else? Then we go on. This is actually to introduce principle 1 first, right? And then now we are going to pull out some aspects or strategies of principle 1 for teachers to do and talk about it. We cannot cover the whole picture because there are so many aspects and strategies, but we will talk about some now, all right? So now is principle 1. Principle 1. There are many strategies for teachers, right? One strategy to help create a welcoming and affirming environment in principle 1 is to assess the physical environment of the classroom and determine whether a variety of diverse cultures, language, orientations, and identities are reflected, represented, and valued. Promote a variety of perspectives that represent the diversity within and outside of your classroom, beyond designated icons, historical figures, months, and holidays, beyond that. For example, just now we talked about like students talking about their home history and everything. And also students can bring objects to talk about their family history by doing a presentation about it, and can decorate the classroom and the hallway in the school with those objects, which shows their culture. That creates a very vivid and very, you can say, beautiful environment and positive environment with all the representations of cultures. So that is one strategy that you can do. And now, okay. Another strategy, provide multiple opportunities for parents to communicate in their language and method prepared. Provide opportunities for parents to communicate in their language and method of preference, such as digital and in-person formats, class visits, school visits, home conversations, text messages, email, collaborative projects, and conferences. Have parents speak in their preferred language and mode of communication. For example, enhance communication with parents of all students. Try to provide translation services for parents who do not speak English, especially for parents who speak low incident languages. I know, like in the school that I work in, there are translators of Spanish, that's great, and some Chinese translators, but so some low incident languages, and the parent coordinator can think of ways, or call the Department of Education for the translation hotline to help parents to understand what the school wants, expect from parents. And also we can award students for their progress and celebrate their achievements with their parents and families. Teachers can attend and involve parents in the cultural celebration in the school community. In some schools, together with the parent coordinator and PTA, the school leadership team and guidance department organize Student of the Month ceremonies to have translation services available. Students who are recommended by teachers and counselors would have pictures taken with their parents, teachers, principal, and other school staff. And that creates a very positive school environment and involving all the teachers and students from different backgrounds. Another strategy, enact classroom management strategies that avoid assigning blame or guilt to students based on perceptions about their cultures, differences, or home lives. For example, encourage students active participation in class without putting blame on students who are not active participants. Students may not be verbal because they come from a culture that is teacher-centered. Discourage racial slurs and disrespectful language in the classroom, and promote friendship and harmony among students. And you must ask yourself, what is preventing me from validating and affirming a student's culture and language? This reflection leads us to think on our own biases, prejudices, and misinformation and ignorance. Sharaki Holy, Executive Director of the Center for Culturally Responsive Teaching and Learning, states that students who come from a culture that does not match the culture of school can find it challenging to conduct positive interactions and build positive relationships with teachers when their cultural behaviors are not recognized. This leads to cultural misunderstandings and miscommunications in classrooms every day. Teachers need to distinguish culturally appropriate behavior from unacceptable behavior in order to establish culturally responsive classroom management. Another example, students from Latin American and Asian cultures show respect by avoiding eye contact with authority figures. While in mainstream American culture, avoiding eye contact is often viewed as being disrespectful. Oftentimes, we hear teachers say, "Look at me when I talk to you," not realizing that the student is actually showing respect. Now, principle 2, high expectations and rigorous instruction. Now, please just briefly read this statement of principle 2 and think about what are you doing to set high expectations and implementing rigorous instruction for culturally diverse students in your class. And you can please place your comments in the chat box. this is, yeah, how do you set high expectations and implement rigorous instruction for all students, not only the students you think they are smart or they did have some good grades before, or for everybody, to set high expectations for all students and implement rigorous instruction. Any answers? Okay, is this the answer for this time? Like you need unity in the school system? Good. Is that the answer? One of the answers for this question? Okay, please, anybody wants to speak it out and also put it in the chat box. This is principle 2. And this is principle 2. We're going to have to go faster because there are principle 4 principles. And we didn't even cover all the strategies, but we covered some important ones. And you can see they're all very important and critical. Okay, anybody can put something in a chat box. What are you doing? Now, what are you doing? Anybody want to speak up? Did you read anything, Xindan?
Well, I'm still yet
Waiting?
to see comments coming in, but there are questions or comments that, well, actually previously, people were talking about how visual arts being important to explore and to value different cultures. So we are sort of like really going deeper into the specific strategies for the principles.
Okay, great.
So now there are comments coming in regarding this particular question, setting high expectations for all students. Gloria mentioned reading materials on different levels of learning, use different modes of teaching, like visual, hands-on, and general ed curriculum, and differentiating the work for students, for especially the English language learning students.
Great, very good. Anyone else? And I know everybody has a lot of comments and answers and thoughts. Then we'll go on because we do have some other activities, right? We have breakout rooms and everything.
Right. Yeah, I think there's one keywords that I'm like seeing across different comments, differentiating activities, because students have diverse learning styles. So when we're talking about setting high expectations, at the same time, also how to address the diverse learning styles and
very good
of students.
That's great. Differentiated instruction while we're setting high expectations in implementing rigorous instruction. Right, that's great. But we are still setting high expectations for all students, but using different approaches. Great, that's a very good comment. Okay, now let's go to principle 2, one of the strategies of principle 2. Okay, have high expectations and deliver rigorous. Okay, so this is basically the same as what the principle says first, right? But regardless of identity markers, right? Including race, gender, sexual orientation, language ability, and economic backgrounds. Okay, good. Okay, when we talk about it, everybody said very good, you know. And when ESL students or multilingual students have difficulty in studying English and cannot pass the ELA exam, Regents exam. We're talking about New York. I know some people here are from other states, okay, but we're talking about the state exam. Teachers should encourage them to view these challenges and failures as opportunities to grow. Encourage students who are historically marginalized register for more advanced courses, such as the advanced placement and college now courses. For Chinese language, encourage students to take the AP Chinese course, right? And in other courses, AP Calculus, AP biology, so on and so forth, okay, to encourage students to obtain the seal of biliteracy. I'm only mentioning this. A seal of biliteracy is so important. We encourage in my school, and we have a lot of ELL students, because there is an issue that we need to encourage more ELL students to earn the seal of biliteracy. In my school, for in the past several years, we do have quite a few bilingual, or you can say ELL students earning the seal of biliteracy to pass the exams and in the portfolios and whatever, and the projects in English, in performance, and in their home language or a foreign language. So there are a lot of people, a lot of students doing well. And this is part of the high expectations for our students. And then also, the high school that I once worked in, many ELL students were encouraged to join the robotic team. Students from different language and cultural backgrounds, and mostly ELL students, worked hard together and 1 year won the city champion in the robotic competition. Captain of the robotic team was a Chinese new immigrant student, was an L student. And so we can see students can all do well. And when we provide rigorous instruction and tasks for L students, learn and accomplish is to, and then also what we are doing is to promote inclusion and equity. Now, another strategy. Okay. Promote alternative achievement metrics that also support academics. Different ways to measure achievements is also supporting academics. It is a good thing to pass the language test and write in inspiration story with vivid Chinese language and expressions, using portfolio, using portfolio and project-based assessments to promote achievement academically. I'm not only talking about Chinese, I just brought up Chinese, but in other languages, but to use different approaches to achieve alternative achievement metrics, to achieve academic excellency. All right, and portfolio assessment enables students to reflect their real performance, to show their strength and challenges, and to observe students' progress during the learning process, and encourage students to take responsibilities for their own learning. All right, so we should we encourage teachers to promote students and students not. When we say students are successful and they achieved a lot, they are, it's not only about their academic grades, it's about how they demonstrate their growth, leadership, and character development, and how they learn 5 competencies of social emotional learning and school values, of course, again, civic readiness. All right, I'm going to go a little bit further. Because we don't have that much time today. Okay, strive to be culturally sustaining by centering the ideas of all students in classroom instruction, encouraging cultural pluralism rather than asking students to minimize their identities in order to be successful. We can talk about pluralism, but how are you going to implement it in your classroom? One strategy is to be culturally sustained by centering the identities of all students in classroom instruction. In addition to use traditional textbooks, include authentic literature from students' own cultures and other cultures. Okay, but authentic is, we're talking about like a Chinese storybook or the textbooks is written by a native speaker of Chinese, and also about a story which they found in the Chinese books in Chinese history and the Chinese environment, and let them learn about their identities. Because just now one person asked about if they don't know their culture well, this is a way, like some students, they are learning Chinese now, but they were born in the United States. They need to know and learn their own culture, okay, by doing this. And the same, and also the students need to include more culturally responsive literature, not only about Chinese culture, but other cultures. Even just say they don't know the other language or the other, their English level is not high enough, but they can still use Chinese to read about Russian stories, Spanish and Haitian stories translated. They need to learn about other cultures, include more culturally responsive literature in order to foster inclusion and promote equity. By Dr. Nancy Cao, this is very true. And please think about it, that how we are going to help our students in this way, right? Principle 3, inclusive curriculum and assessment. What are you doing to create inclusive curricula and assessments for culturally diverse students in your classroom? Okay, please put your answers in the chat box. You know, every single comment from you is so precious. It's very helpful. Everything you said is so true, because teachers are at the frontier teaching students, and you know all the students. You're teaching all the diverse population of students. Very good. So please put something in the chat box. How are you creating inclusive curriculum?
Actually, I saw a question related to assessment already. It's hard to assess, and also talking about not lowering standards, because we talked about high expectations and standards for students, while now looking at something that's very difficult to assess.
Okay, that's a good question and a good thought. All right. Anyone else?
Yeah, Jonathan Wu mentioned cultural sensitivity.
Great. Okay.
Yeah, there are more comments or feedbacks coming in, so I'm just waiting for a little bit. And someone mentioned do passport activity. Students picking a country to learn and do a project about. And especially
project-based. Right, good, thank you.
Right.
I personally would prefer a portfolio development for individual students in case of exposing discussion about racial issue or through culture development. But because this topic is very sensitive, and if you don't get support from the principal or the school-wide, it's very difficult to assess this issue matter. So I would definitely encourage students to develop an individual portfolio and evaluate them individually.
This is a very good idea. And also, that's why culturally responsive sustaining education, this framework is not only for teachers to implement, for administrators and district leaders in the state and higher education, teacher training programs, and everybody needs to know that we should implement culturally responsive sustaining education framework in all levels, and all educators should be doing this job. So you brought up something very important. Thank you so much. Okay, so
Yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
There are several comments coming in. I just want to summarize perhaps a little bit, if I may, because I know our time is limited. It's especially related to the AAPI Heritage Month, and quite a few teachers mentioned, well, to really invite students to share not only with Asian heritages, but students' own heritages in their lessons and discussions, and to discuss, and so that students will learn about the various cultures and different histories. So to combine that with events and festivals and in general that's happening now.
Great. That is so good. Very good comments. You see, people have good comments, good ideas. Everybody has good input. Okay.
Yeah, emphasizing the libraries. Sorry, just
go ahead.
Quite a few also mentioned the diverse literature texts and creating classroom libraries that would, like, well, Nancy, you just mentioned the books and literacy in the different languages, to really include that into the learning environment.
Great, very good. Okay, because of time, we have to go a little bit further, right? I don't know why. Ooh. Okay, all right. Now we talked about different languages, different cultures and histories. Okay, principle 3, we talked about this, about curriculum. So the curriculum, what should it include? In a study of benefits students of color gaining from multicultural education, researchers found evidence for the positive social and emotional effects of diverse curriculum. Reading texts written by members of the ethnic groups that are underrepresented in school curriculum improve the self-esteem of students of that ethnic group and causes all students to have a greater appreciation for cultural differences. When we present our students only with one perspective that doesn't reflect or represent the reality of our culturally, linguistically diverse students. So it's very important that we can use historical texts about, and do they know about the Native American history? Do they know about, about slavery and how all these groups came to America? All right. Do you know, as American Indians, the first arrivals, right? Actually, they were here when Columbus first discovered America in 1492. There were already about millions of Native Americans living on the continent. And the arrival of the first captives to the Jamestown colony in 1619 is often seen as the beginning of slavery in America, but enslaved Africans arrived in North America as early as the 1500s. Latin Americans came to fruition in the 1500s after European discovery of the New World. And we all know all the histories, American, Hispanic, Latinx history is a rich, diverse, and long one. Okay. And the history of Chinese Americans, or the history of ethnic Chinese in the United States, includes 3 major waves of Chinese immigration to the United States, beginning in the 19th century, and it's a long history. And we should know that people are fighting along their way to fight for justice, equity, and people can read about it. I'm not going to go too deep in it, but also that everybody should know the history of other cultures and ethnicities, and also respect each other and learn more. We can organize students to go to all museums of different cultures and different groups of people, different cultures, and that's very helpful for your students. And you can use, and even they don't know English that well, they can have some translations of the history, stories of other cultures and racial groups and ethnic groups. All right, I'm not going to say too much because of the time. All right, I didn't expect this. Okay. Another one, how to use student data and assessment that reflects learning spaces. Just now, teacher talked about to use the portfolio. It is very good. And because we cannot only rely on students' standardized tests. It should go beyond of some grades. And it doesn't, only the regions or some tests doesn't show the whole picture of the student. So the portfolios and project-based assessments are very good, very useful. And I'm going to just show you a little like data. No, I cannot show the whole thing, but this is a document showing some data of the consortium schools. The consortium schools are the schools that in New York City and New York State, mostly in New York City, I think there are 38 of them, that they only use English. They only need to pass the English regions and the math regions, and the rest of the regions assessment, not regions assessment, assessments, they can use portfolio and they can do projects. So, and they were very successful. And let me see if I can show you some statistics of how they were quite successful. This is the statistics or data that we can see that the ELL graduation rate of these consortium schools was 69.5%, versus, versus the whole city is 39.7%. So it does show they can graduate. I know people will say, okay, because their portfolios and their projects are tough. They're really looking into something and doing something really hands-on and practical. And so people can look into this and see some schools there are some schools of consortium schools, but this is one way to evaluate and assess students' achievement. Okay, so this is actually to assess college readiness through authentic student work. So that shows something about what we mean here, okay? All right, now we're going to go further. Principle 4, ongoing professional learning. So far, have you attended any professional learning? Anybody can tell us that helps you in understanding cultural responsive, sustaining education? Any input from people, from our educators? Any people? No.
Paris was the only one. Hello. I was trying to say something.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was saying that year one was the only one because that I went to and I was able to use what I have learned exactly. The very next time I had class, I was using those materials. And I said, oh my goodness, after time, I saw that you took it down. So you probably realized that I was like, what I was doing is like deleting some of what the teachers was writing in. And I was actually letting the kids fill out those sheets. And I hope you saw what they did. That was the only time I was ever taught to use different culture to interact and present their work together when they do a project.
Thank you. Thank you for your, Malva, thank you for your input. So we can see the need of implementing cultural responsive sustaining education in our classrooms, in our schools, in the state.
And it was so nice because the kids was telling us that Miss McDonald, for breakfast, the American breakfast is egg and stuff like that, but we have rice and different stuff. Then we were talking about different kinds of stuff that's happening. You could see the differences with the culture. And I was like, really? You know, they were saying that they have different, and it opened up your eyes to how people actually live. And, you know, and I was shocked, and I asked them about what kind of holidays they do in their country. And they were telling me, Miss, we have the year of the rat and the year of the ox and the year of the this. So I says, well, what happened during the pandemic? What year was that? That was the year of the rat. I says, oh no, guys, you know, we see how bad it was last year. That's because it's year of the rat. So you see, look at our culture and see what happening globally on a worldwide scale. And the Chinese don't think year of the rat is such a great year, but a year of ox is going to be very, very good, because now things is going to get much, much better as long as you work hard. You have to work hard and work in unity, get along with each other and be the best that you can. And then year of the ox will be productive for all. And that's because of what the Chinese kids taught me.
This is so inspiring. Thank you so much for your input. Thank you.
But just so much. I'm so sorry. I had to be like dramatic.
Yeah, that's fine. No problem. That's good. That's great. Your comments are great.
When I learned it, it was so amazing to me. So I cannot help just experiencing all of this energy and just giving it back to you guys.
Okay, great. Okay, so what, you know, Marva already gave us very important and good input. So we're going to hurry up, and because we have breakout rooms as well waiting for us. So I have to speed up a little bit, right? Okay, we have a lot to talk about, right? So we'll just start now for another, the principle 4. Principle 4, ongoing professional work. So learn about implicit bias to identify and challenge your own bias. Actually, we talked about this somehow. So all the principles and all the aspects and strategies of those principles are all closely related. But sometimes you don't realize it is related, but some things are a little bit different maybe, because when we talked about bias, something is like deep inside. There's like more surface cultures, and they're all like deeper cultures, right? So I can give you an example. Like teachers should become knowledgeable about implicit bias, including their like they should also learn about people, cultures, and languages, orientations more deeply. Right? And I'm just giving one example. When a teacher selects a student to speak at the graduation, with bias, the teacher might just select a student with less accent, even though the content of the speeches are a little bit greater, yeah, or similar, while not looking into how hard the student had tried and how much the student has improved, and especially from you know, like a entering L student, and the student made such a big progress. And I really think we should invite some students who made tremendous progress in talking, in speaking, in telling us their experience. So biases exist a lot of places, and teachers, you can think about it. And whether we do have some biases sometimes, it's a very sensitive issue, but we should think about this because this is part of what we're doing. If we have bias, how can we implement cultural responsive sustaining education, okay, or effective? And there's another one about principle 4, great opportunities to better acquaint yourself with the diverse community. So anybody wants to talk about it, then I'll talk about myself. How do you create opportunities to better acquaint yourself with the diverse communities of your students, with the diverse communities in which your students live? Anybody wants to say that? And actually, Martha said something very well. She said, I learned about, the year of the rat, of the ox, and learn about Chinese food. You know about them, and maybe you're, and I know that some teachers that they go to the community to communicate with those stores, which sell Chinese food, and also go into the church and everything. There are a lot of ways to involve yourself and acquaint yourself with the diverse community. All right, anybody wants to say something? How many participants we have today?
We have 47 at this point.
Okay. Before I remembered like 50 or 60. Okay, sure. Okay, now anybody wants to say something? Then I'm going to just continue, all right? Okay, teachers should involve themselves with the community where their students live, right? Schools and teachers establish strong relationships with community organizations, including business, churches, temples, and many charitable organizations. The charitable organizations include, but not limited to, the United Way worldwide. We have Queens Community House helping our students in our school, the school which I worked in before. And also, we can also talk about how myself, I participated in volunteer services nearby churches when I was working in school, in community boards, and the Elmhurst Hospital Community Board. All this really make me know better about the community of my students, where my students live in. And this will also help you to know your students better. Of course, you don't need to all become community board members, but to go to the church, go to a library where the parents and students are borrowing books next to your school. You know what, you can see a lot of familiar faces from your school, right? So these are all very good deeds and good ways to acquaint yourself with the diverse community. All right, now we'll, I know people are all very busy, but there's a lot of involvement can help you to know your students well, like we talked about before, like PTA meetings, school activities, multicultural festivals with their parents and everything. Right. Okay, now we'll continue. All right. Breakout room discussion. We'll have, let me see, I have to look at the time. Okay, breakout room discussions, 15 minutes. Okay, we'll use 15 minutes. Okay, it's a little bit tight, but maybe a few minutes is okay, sure. Okay, so
perhaps so we can invite our teacher participants. If you want to share, you can unmute yourself and share what you have discussed in the breakout room.
No, for our group too, we were just talking about, connecting with the students, and Michael mentioned introducing art in the curriculum, how kids respond to art and how they're able to, to make the connection, and how we can use a culturally responsive sustaining education through art and how that works with the students. And in our school at 318, we try to use art in all our different disciplines for kids to present their work in math, social studies, English language arts. We in science, kids do projects and they use art to present, what they're trying to, the point they're trying to get across.
Very good. It's very, very good because I really like art, and I think art is a universal language, and it also expresses very deep and profound ideas. So it's really a good thing to use art to express yourself and in this cultural responsive sustaining environment. Really good comments. Anyone else wants to say it? We try to use say it verbally, and this because we have another activity that we can encourage people to write it. So please.
I'll make a comment here.
Sure.
In reference to the first welcoming and affirming environment, we spoke about the importance. Ron actually helped steer this very important topic. And it's a simple matter. It's getting the names right. Pronunciation of students' names. I mean, I've always tried to do that, but Ron made it clear how important the family name is in a Asian culture and Chinese culture, and any attempt to pronounce the names right just shows respect for the culture. And,
that's really true. Very good. Yeah. That's very good, because I remember when I was 16 years as an assistant principal, every senior awards night, I have to practice like 2 days of students' names, not to make mistakes. It's very important. Thank you so much. Right.
Could I add on to what that gentleman was saying about welcoming? And I try to do the same thing. Like now with the way our classes are done, you have the remote classes, and then we have the different cohorts that come in. When I enter a class, I make sure I say every student's name who was sitting in the classroom every day. I say hello to each student. And then I also celebrate their birthdays. And sometimes students are shy, so I said, it's okay if I tell everybody it's your birthday? And then some will say yes and some will say no. But I would post it on Google Classroom. When they click on for the lesson for the day, the person's birthday is right there with the balloons and the cake. And so I try to make a point to celebrate all the students' birthdays.
That's so nice of you. A caring teacher, great. That is what teachers we need, right? Teachers to show your concern and know the students, know their birthdays, pronounce their names correctly. All this, this is part of our job, right? Great.
Yeah, and just lastly, also in our group, I bring this up again. Our former assistant principal would always say, "Kids don't care how smart you are. Kids care if you care." And when I took that to heart, it really made a difference on how I interacted with the kids and how I got along with the kids. It just made life so much better for me.
This is a great quote from Matthew.
Mr. McCooch. Yeah, from Matthew. It's actually from Zbigniew McCooch. He was our assistant principal at 318. That's what he said. Yeah.
Wow, great.
Kids don't care how smart you are. Kids care if you care.
Care about whether you care. Oh my God, that's so good. So good. Anybody else wants to say something? And because of time, but very good comments, very good and profound. All right. And so what are some of the challenges to implement the framework? What are the challenges?
So someone in our group mentioned having 150 students a day, or 150 students total to work with, and how difficult it is to actually be able to know all of them and their who they are as people, and also mentioned that this year, because of being online with smaller groups and in class with smaller groups, she had a much more in-depth experience getting to know her students, which is something I hope we all agreed, we hope we could figure out how to take that forward into the new normal post-pandemic.
Good idea. Very effective. That's good, because the students' names are on the screen. So it gives you more, helps you more to remember their names. That's true. So maybe once in a while, if it's possible, to have some online also, not, if we all in person, of course, online meetings or whatever, or like group meetings or tutor, I don't know. This is like, it has to depend. It also depends on the school. It is a good idea because it is true. 5 classes. Normally teachers have 5 classes, and that is about 100 some students, 120 or 150. Thank you, Rob. Anybody else? That is a real challenge. Okay. Anybody else?
I have to thank the teacher in my group who said that. I'm just the conduit.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, to accentuate what Robin was saying, like the challenge is like when you assign a lesson, now if you assign it to all your classes, now that's like 150 things you have to review. And you want to be, as thorough as possible, but that's a really big challenge when you do that. So you got to be very judicious when you assign something to be assessed and reviewed.
That's great when you know the students' names. I visited some classrooms, and when the teachers know the names so well and know what's happening, how are you today, and yesterday, it's so good. And the students feel it, feel the warmth. It's very important. Any other challenges?
I feel one challenge is that teachers' lack of knowledge about students' culture, and then about the strategies to teach diverse students. Since until now, as I know, most of the PD focus on content knowledge and regular teaching pedagogy. So teachers don't have many opportunities to expose to different kinds of cultures, and then different kinds of languages. So it's very difficult for teachers to greet students in their own languages, or use students' first language to create some questions in the class. Yes, another challenge I think is that there's a gap between school, family, and teacher, and also students. I don't mean there's not good relationships between these whole stakers, but I should say that it's very limited opportunities, and it's very limited times for that to sit down or to discuss something about the students, especially for some specific domains, because maybe some parents, they don't have enough domain knowledge to contribute to the class or to the curricula. Another one, maybe parents are very busy about their work, about their economics, and then the community also, they don't have I think, they don't have so many passion to involve themselves to the students' learning and the school development.
And actually, what you said is all very important. And I know there's a lot of challenges. And teachers are very busy, have limited time, but like to talk to students individually and know them and make some necessary phone calls to students who find out they need some help with the parents. And also, you can also attend PTA meetings once in a while. It's every month in the school. And then you can get to know the school better. And also get in touch with a lot of parents. And you can even make appointments with parents. Can you come to the PTA meeting? I want to talk to you. It's not only it's open school day and open school night, also 8 PTA meetings, which happens every month. And that is an opportunity for parents to get involved with the school, and the teachers get involved with some parents they want to, communicate with. I know it's hard to really attend a lot of community activities or spend time, but we just try to make this effort. This is our direction to do it completely effectively. Well, it's not easy. Everything, we need to put in our effort. But
yes,
and you brought up these challenges, and I think a lot of teachers have the same challenges. So we'll try to overcome hardship. And
thank you.
At my school, I know part of the challenge is being able to connect with parents, especially if they speak a different language. That can be a barrier. And since the pandemic began last March, we had already had most of our school community on Class Dojo. I don't know if anyone else uses that, but we really worked where everyone in our school was like, get on the phone, get these parents, email them, get everyone on Dojo. And that has really been amazing for our school to be able to connect with our entire, we have almost 100% of all of our students are on Class Dojo. And it's really the work of our parent coordinators. And there's so many people, we just had everyone calling and just getting everyone on. And it's really been amazing because anyone can connect with the parents, and it automatically translates to the language of the parents. So it's really an amazing platform for, breaking that language barrier between parents. And it's a great way to communicate. You can send out to the whole school. You can send out directly to a parent. It's just a wonderful tool. So I would highly recommend that as a way to, it's called Class Dojo, DOJO. And it's really been so helpful, especially during this pandemic, with staying in touch with families. And that's a suggestion that I would
good. This is really good practice. And that's why we want these interactions between teachers, because you have a lot of good ideas and good practice you can tell your the fellow participants, the other teachers, and you're telling us, and we are also learning it. Okay, so that's great. And we'll just go on. Okay, very good. We have hundreds of things to say, and in our Jamboard we can also write it down, because this is more verbally saying it, and the people who didn't have a chance to say it can write it down in our Jamboard activity. All right, so let's go here. And what do you see here? That this is just an image. What can you use one statement to tell me? What do you think here when you see this image?
That students are at the center or the core.
Great, that's it. That's what we wanted. That's the answer, right? No matter what we do, we're serving our students. So the students are at the center of what we're doing, and we're serving them. Okay, this is a good answer. Great, just to the point. Okay, now, because of time, we'll go on, and I'm going to put the Jamboard link into the and you can click on every participant. Please click on the Jamboard to write down your, to share with the class, all right? Share with the class. Okay, I won't share, just, this is for everybody. Provide this color. Okay, that's fine. So people that, you know, because we have limited time, not everybody spoke about it. So you can write about it. You have a word like promoting all the skills, listening, speaking, reading, writing. Okay, so anybody, okay, you can just click on that poster, okay, the sticky note, and write something on it and post it here, okay? Click on that link that I put in the chat box. Right, this is moving. Right, good. Somebody put down empathy. Okay. What I believe in culturally responsive, sustaining education, respect, inclusion. Great. Great. Connecting with one another, inclusion. CRSE can help students make academic and socio-emotional progress and learning. Right, great. Open-mindedness and connections, right. Limit unconscious bias, right? Open-mindedness, acknowledgement, varied perspectives, inclusion, great. Be inclusive, showing respect and understanding, getting rid of stereotypes, etc. Good. All right, let's move forward. Okay, please. What I personally will do, novel ideas, like you write down what I'm going to do, a brief statement, and then another person can put in, not to repeat it because we have a limited time, but everybody's input is so precious and good because we have just some limits here. So I'm sorry for the past 11:30. Okay, anybody wants to say what you personally want to do? Before it was, what are you doing? Now is what you are planning to do, what you will do. Any inputs? Just now it was very active. The mindset was very active. And now the planning is tough because you have to, oh, what I'm going to really do. I want to write down what I'm really going to do, right?
Miss Wang,
yes.
This is Miss McDonald. Marva, sorry.
Yeah, Marva.
I was taking my students because I live in New Jersey, but I work in New York. And every year I would take them to the hospital in their community. And because I do to the morgue actually, and I would let the doctors teach them. So that day I wouldn't teach them, the doctor would teach them for one day. And because of COVID, I am very sad because all of that intelligence I can't access anymore. So maybe I'm thinking if we could get the doctor from the hospital to come to the school now, that would be better. And what I used to do, I used to get people from the police officer from the precinct once a year to come and speak to our students about certain behavior that they should have, about the areas of the school and the areas, and I share that with them. So that's integrating the community and what's going on in their lives, what's going on. So I brought CSI into the school for the first time, and I had it in the auditorium. And so I was able to get them to come in. And so that's some of the things that I do. But I want to know if you could give me ideas, because I would like people from the Asian community to come and speak to my kids who are affiliated with different organization and program, to come in and help them.
Great. I put this, what you said, Marva, into a Post-it. This, you can click on this Post-it and like sticky note and write it in and then post it here. But what you said is amazing. Great. And I do remember we do have, we did invite nurses and doctors to our career day, and also talk to students in health classes. And what you're doing is continuing our good heritage. Well, you are really doing a fantastic job helping the kids. And also to invite the police officers to talk about how to behave and a lot about law enforcement knowledge. We have to continue a little bit, and then we'll end this. Anybody else wants to write? I want to go back to celebrate in our classroom different holidays and culturally significant days where family members would come in with food. I'm working on art lessons that highlight more diverse artists and art forms from a wider array of cultures. Okay, very good. Anybody else? And the CTLE link is in the chat. You can copy it down and okay. It's all very good. Anybody else wants to say anything? I'll go on. All right. Okay. Thank you so much for your input, verbally and written.
Hi, this is John. I just wanted to throw this out there as well. There is a book on the New York Times bestseller list by this guy named King. It's called The Unspoken Rules. It may be helpful for students, as some of them are career-minded, that book. Something that is raced up the New York Times bestseller list at lightning speed and is being talked about very widely on Clubhouse and Fishbowl. It helps a lot in terms of helping the students know what the real world is like, also while they're still in the academic world, because one day they will.
Okay, thank you so much. I know we're passing our time, and some people, they still have to have something to do, but very good input. Can you put that link in the chat box and we can share with the other participants? And then we'll end up this meeting, this Zoom workshop. And I'm so happy today that our teachers have so much input, and we'll end up with this mindset of all stakeholders. Actually, today is mainly teachers. So you can read, anybody wants to read the cultural responsive sustaining mindset of all stakeholders. Anybody wants to read the first one? Believing? Okay, go ahead.
Believing that culture is not an addition, but is a critical component of education.
Okay, go ahead.
Believing that students and their families are individuals with their own assets, knowledge, and abilities who should be valued and consulted. Believing that critical and continuous self-reflection is required to dismantle systems of biases and inequities rooted in our country's history, culture, and institutions.
Okay, very good. Thank you so much. All New York State education stakeholders can adapt all these culturally responsive, sustaining, aligned mindsets as a lens through which to implement the CRS guidelines outlined in this framework. Okay, questions? You can put the questions in the chat box because we passed our time, because we have so many active participants today. So I'm very glad and learned a lot from you. So the resources, the framework is here. So if you need to copy it down, and actually if you Google it, New York State Culturally Responsive Sustaining Education Framework, you can get it right away from the website, okay? These are the resources that we are based on, that today's workshop. And this is just an introduction of what this workshop of CRSE is. And we are going to continue with more discussions in depth. Okay, thank you so much.
Ms. Wang, Ms.
Yes,
Wang,
yes.
could at least give us credit for at least 45 minutes more, because if you give us credit for like 11:45, it's just better than you know, the extra time we really need for the CTLE.
I don't know how the people welcome calculate it, but at least it's 2 hours, right? 2 hours is definite. The ones that you need more, we'll discuss that. I'm not very sure, because it's not only me making the decision, but we will inform you for more workshops. All right?
Yeah, because it's almost 12 o'clock now, so at least give us 45 minutes more, it'll be okay.
Okay, sure. Okay, we'll discuss that. Okay, thank you. Thank you, and thank you for all the participation.
Thank you. Thanks, guys, for everything. Thank you.
Ms. Wu, may I ask a question? Where can we view the recording? I think it's very helpful and useful. So I mean that I will review, and so I want to know where can I get the reviewing.
Okay, Xinjian, Yongqiang, you recorded it, right?
Yeah.
Did record it. So the teacher who have this kind of request, can you put your name or email? Okay, put your name and email.
Okay, they can email me if they. So I think they can email me if they need the record.
Okay, Yongqiang, can you put your email address in the chat box?
Yeah, I sent a reminder to everyone yesterday. So
okay,
here
sure.
is again my email.
And also we will have follow-up emails to.
I'm Shirley Liang. I
everyone.
hope I can get the link to review and I can get the recording. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
And also, okay, I can see the email from Yongqiang. Thank you so much. And I will contact with you after the class, because I'm so interested in this kind of topic. And I think today we have many examples about arts, literature arts, but in fact, I have more interested in teaching mathematics with cultural responsive strategies or pedagogies. So thank you very much. I will contact you more. Thank you. And who is Wai Lin? Okay, Wai Lin is Yongqiang, right?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. Wu, and thank you all.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. If you want to contact me, this is my information. And then you can also contact Yongqiang and Xinjian and everybody here. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we will send out follow-up emails with, I saw so many great comments in the chat room, and in the follow-up email, we will include the summary of those comments and also the survey link. We do appreciate your input. As some of you mentioned, for some of the topics that you want to learn or participate in the future, this is very important and valuable. Thank you all very much for a very productive morning of the weekend.
Thank you.
Okay,
thank you so
Xinjian.
much. Have a good day. Bye.
Bye. Any other questions or comments or suggestions? Put it in the you can email us. You can email Yongqiang or Xinjian. Okay, my email is here.